So to begin, we're going to need a text editor. A text editor allows us to write our code quickly and easily, while also helping us to run and test our code as we write. Now, there are a number of different options when it comes to text editors, but the most popular is Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio Code is more than likely going to be what you'll end up using moving forward, regardless of what project you're working on or what language you're learning. So to get set up, all you want to do is to search Visual Studio Code online. And once you find it, click on the page and you'll land on this landing page here. Now, depending on what system you're using, I'm using a Mac at the moment, but if you're using a Windows or a Linux, click on this drop down, select whatever is applicable for you, and then hit download. Once that downloads, you should see this Visual Studio Code tab here, and once you click on it, you'll land on this page. Now that we have Visual Studio Code installed, this will be where we write all of our code moving forward. One of the biggest benefits of using Visual Studio Code is that it comes with a whole range of extensions that we can use to make our lives easier. And before we start writing code, there are two extensions that we're going to install now. So come over here and click on the extensions tab, and once it opens up, we are going to search for the first of these extensions, which is called Prettier. Now, what Prettier does is it is a code formatter, meaning that as we write code, it's going to format the code to look very neat and tidy. I've already got Prettier installed, but you'll see a button here to install. Click that and then enable. The second extension which we will use is called Open in Browser. Now, what Open in Browser does is that as we are writing code, we are going to be able to see that in the browser in real time, so that as we make changes, we'll be able to see how them changes are affecting our code on screen. Again, I've got this installed already, but click on install and then enable. And once you've done that, we will close this tab down, close this and come back here. Okay, so last one or two things here before we actually start writing code. What we'll need to do is to create a folder to store our project in, okay? And there are two different ways of doing this. I'm going to show you both just so you know, but either way is absolutely fine. The first is the standard. Open up your desktop, right click, create new folder, and we will call this HTML project. Okay, and we can hit enter and we can write our code in there. All right, now what I'm going to do is just to show you another way. We'll delete this folder, and what we're going to do is to actually create a file, or create a folder rather, from our terminal in Visual Studio Code. So what we'll do is click on terminal and then new terminal. And what that's going to do is it's going to open up this command line down the bottom of the screen. And we're going to run a command ls. And what this will do is it's going to list out all the directories on our system. Okay. Now what I want to do is I want to come into this desktop file here, or desktop folder rather. So what I'm going to do is over here is I'm going to run cd for change directory, and we'll change directory into our desktop. Hit enter, and now you'll see we are inside of this desktop directory. And what I can do is I can run ls, which will list out everything inside of this folder, and you'll see it's just our miscellaneous folder. Now what I'll do is I'm going to run another command, mkdir, to make directory, and we'll call this HTML project. Hit enter, and now when we list out everything inside of our desktop folder, we have our miscellaneous folder, but we also have this HTML project, and that'll be reflected here as well. Okay, so now that we have our folders created, the last thing that we need to do is to actually create the file where we'll write our code. Okay, now you can open the folder from up here or here, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to open it from here, and we will open our HTML project. Okay, so click on this button here and here for create file, and what we're going to do is we're going to create our HTML file. Now you can name this whatever you would like, but it has to end in .html. All right, so we can say home.html, we can say index.html. It doesn't really matter. The main thing is that it all needs to be lowercase, there to be no spaces, and it has to end in .html. Okay, so click enter, and now we have our first HTML file set up. Okay, so now that we have our HTML file set up, we can begin writing code. Now the first thing that we need to do is to declare the document type on the top of the screen. Alright, so just add in this line, it's .type HTML. And it's very important that you add that in. Anytime you're writing HTML moving forward, you'll need to have that in for the program to work. Now, with HTML, bar a couple of exceptions, anytime we're writing a HTML element, it will have an opening tag and a closing tag. So your HTML element here, this is the opening tag and the closing tag generates for us there. Now, one last thing that we need to do here before we write any more code is we just need to declare the language. Alright, so obviously it's English, and a little bit like this document type at the start, you'll need to declare the language inside of your HTML tag moving forward whenever you're writing HTML. Once that's done, now we're free to write whatever code we want. And the first thing we need is a head tag, and then we also need a body tag. Now, the head tag contains what's known as metadata, alright? So this is stuff that doesn't show up on the screen, but it's very, very important to a website. So things like the description, the title, the author goes inside of your head tag. Now, actually, the title we can add here will actually show up. So we can say my project, Command S to save that. And inside of the body, what we are going to do is I'm going to add a P tag for paragraph. Now in later videos we'll look at this in more depth, different elements that we can use and different tags that we can use. We'll also, in the next video, we're going to focus a lot on this head, alright? But in here we can write hello world. Command S, and what we're going to do now is we're going to run this in the browser. So we'll come down here, right click on the index.html, come down here and open in default browser. And you'll see this now is running in the browser. Now it's important to note that this isn't live online. This is our local server, so it's only us that can see this at the moment. Obviously, as we build out the site, we can publish it online and set the site live, but for the moment we're in our development environment where we can play around with HTML, we can add styling, all that sort of stuff. Okay, and just to show you this is live, what we'll do is we'll come back here and we'll change this now so that it says hello learn to code audience. Okay, save that, come back here, and once we hit refresh, hello learn to code audience. Alright, so that's everything for this video. I'm going to finish up here. In the next video we'll look more in depth at the head tag. Thanks very much for your time. Bye bye.